Greetings, my friend, and welcome back to my game room. Back in high school, that was a time when it was not hip to be square. I was a geek long before geek was cool. And as such, of course, I was a member of the chess club. It got me interested in playing two-player strategy games. As you can probably tell, I'm still interested in two-player strategy games. Well, in 1970, while I was still in school, the 3M company came out with a game that really interested me. I saw it sitting on the store shelf, and I said, this guy looked kind of vaguely like Mr. Spock. And he's dressed sort of like Will Robinson. And I said, hey, this looks geeky enough for me. And I bought it on the spot. Now, it's one of the very few games that's in my collection that I actually bought myself right off the shelf back in the day, in a first edition, no less. Now, the backstory goes like this. In the early 70s, the 3M company wanted to expand upon its bookshelf series of games with some new titles. And so they called upon their usual team of game designers, Sid Saxon and Alex Randolph and a couple of others. And they brought somebody new into the team who was called Frank Thibault. Frank had designed several games, and 3M picked up a few of them for their next wave of releases. And Ploy was one of those games. Now, this was a part-time gig for Frank. He was a full-time English teacher. Frank, by the way, did meet with some success later on in 1983 when this came out. He created Topple, which eventually was produced by Pressman. It was also produced in Europe, and there's several different names and so on, and literally became a worldwide success. Topple is actually how he started to make money at the game. Ploy was published in Europe by several different companies, and it was known by several different names too, of course. But the game Imperium was produced by Schmidtspiele in Germany, and I think the odd thing here is that it credits Sid Saxon for the design. I don't know if that might have led to any bad feelings between the two, but at any rate, that's what you might consider a typographical error, I guess. Ploy is one of those games that's easy to learn, takes a lifetime to master, which, is sort of a death knell for a tagline, but it's more or less true. It can teach a 6-year-old how to play this game in a matter of minutes, and the more you play, the deeper you see strategic decisions and consequences of your moves, and that makes it a very successful game right out of the gate. So without any further ado, let's just get into those rules, and here's how to play. The game board includes a simple 9x9 array of spaces, all interconnected by lines, which are pretty much decorative. The rules include several setup options and an array of pieces suitable for 2 or 4 players. Here's the default 4-player setup. It's a winner-take-all scenario in which some players will be eliminated as the game progresses. This setup is suggested for team play, which is an interesting variant, but table talk becomes an issue. But this is the 2-player arrangement, which I feel is the best way to play the game. Whichever of these variations you play, the objective of the game is to capture your opponent's commander or eliminate all of their probes and lances. These are the Ploy pieces. Each player has a set number of these based on the number of players. Each type moves a different distance as shown here. This is a maximum distance. A piece can be moved fewer spaces. And movement must stop at the edge of the board or at a player's own piece. The angle of the vanes on each piece indicates the direction of that movement. On a player's turn, there are 2 choices. Option 1. Move a piece according to the rules already mentioned. If this move results in landing on a space occupied by an opponent's piece, the opponent's piece is eliminated from the game. Option 2. Rotate a piece to change its orientation on the board. There is one special rule for the scouts. These pieces can combine the 2 options in one move, in that order. Move, then rotate. That's it. You are now fully schooled in the rules for Ploy. Your next lesson will be in strategy and tactics. which will take many, many hours of hands-on experience. And that's it. That's how to play Ploy. It is very simple, very straightforward. Unfortunately, it's not in print anymore. Some folks have made their own sets. And speaking of homemade sets, there are a lot of house rules as well. People have come up with variations in the rules, win conditions. Some folks have introduced new super powerful pieces. I've heard of rules that allow for promoting a piece. And of course, people have developed 3-player rules as well. Now, one of the things that I did was create a setup for 2 players that only uses the central portion of the board, not the outer ring, so you've got a 7x7 grid to play on. That worked out really well for teaching. It seemed to hold the attention of the student, especially when they're under 10 years old. So, in conclusion, that's the game of Ploy. It's a great little game if you can find a copy of it. I definitely encourage you to pick that up. If you play Ploy or whatever it is that you play this weekend, hey, you know what I say. Be sure to play every day.